Now, could a prospector such as myself actually come out today, file a claim, and start hauling some of this beautiful rock back to Boston?
Well, you know, if I was back at the shop where I have 50 clamps, I would certainly glue all the face frames up before I go back into the kitchen. But I got another way. Come on, grab these biscuits and we'll go back to the kitchen.
This I gotta see.
I like taking off a little bit at a time because you can always take a little more off, but you can't put any back on.
Funding for this old house is provided by
State Farm Insurance, keeping our promise of protection with auto, home, life and health insurance. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
and by Parks Corporation, makers of safe and simple, environmentally responsible stains and finishes that enrich, protect, and preserve the natural beauty of wood.
Hey, Jim.
Hey, Steve.
How you doing?
My job.
Yeah. Well, this ought to make you pretty happy.
Oh, this my new restaurant, Stowe?
That's it.
Good.
Joanna tells me you're the chef in the family, and she also promises me that you're going to make some fabulous Nuevo Mexican cuisine in the last show.
Oh, I promise, Steve, I promise.
Great. The real success story this week, however, is the Flagstone.
Isn't that stuff beautiful?
Oh, it's absolutely superb. I understand they use a lot of this here in Santa Fe.
Yeah, they do, Steve, but you know, the guy that's putting ours down is the best in town, and it's just fabulous.
Yeah, and your artist studio is absolutely superb. This has just become my most coveted flooring material.
Isn't this great, Steve?
Oh, it's lovely.
You know, 5 years ago when we built this studio, we wanted to put in Flagstone, but we just didn't have the means to do it. And now with the radiant heating in under it and the Flagstone down and everything in place, we're just thrilled.
Well, I want to see how it goes in because it's such a good job. But before we do that, let me take you to Arizona to see where it comes from.
Great.
Well, out here by Mud Catch Tank, you got to watch your step. They run little cattle down here in the hollows. Up in the hills, they do a little skiing. Of course, in the summer, the place is crawling with tourists because we're only about 60 miles from the Grand Canyon. But believe it or not, we're standing on top of some of the finest flagstone deposits in the world. Earlier, I had a chance to meet up with Jerry Dunbar, second-generation quarryman, whose family's been quarrying here for 50 years. So, Jerry, what did this land look like in 1946 when your dad first came out here?
It looks similar to what it does today, Steve, with the juniper trees and the oak brush and the prickly pear cactus there.
Over here. I tell you, it's beautiful out here.
And they saw the stone outcroppings.
Oh, look at this. This is beautiful stuff. Love this red color.
This is Arizona sandstone. This is a thicker variety here that requires further processing by a machine to cut it into strips. That makes it more useful for homeowners and other projects. But it indicated that there was deposits under the surface here, and what they were really looking for was like this ledge back here.
Boy, it's already splitting off there.
The fact that the layers are there indicated that the deposit would be more readily splittable into sheets for flagging and patios and paving.
Well, I can see how this ledge runs off in this direction here.
Yes, and it indicates that there's probably be a good site for a quarry operation.
Now, your dad didn't actually own the land.
No, the land is government land, but it was made possible to file claims on by the mining law of 1872.
Now, could a prospector such as myself actually come out today, file a claim, and start hauling some of this beautiful rock back to Boston?
You sure could, Steve, but it's a lot more complicated today.
Okay. Where's your quarry?
We're quarrying right over here to the left.
Let's check that out. Well, how extensive are these deposits, Jerry?
These deposits cover approximately 200 square miles in this area.
Right. Very extensive.
Yes.
And how long have you been quarrying here?
We've started quarrying over at Corva, which is about 2 miles over this way. And we've been quarrying here since approximately 1950.
Well, I don't see any pickaxes and guys disappearing into holes. I see, some serious machinery and some wedges down here.
Yes, this is an open pit operation where they're working on the surface, and they use the large 20-pound sledgehammers and wedges.
From this angle, you can really see how this deposit was laid down. Like the Grand Canyon, in layers. Those up at the top, they're foot thick. They get thinner and thinner. Down here, some of these layers are only a quarter of an inch thick. I'd imagine that this was laid down millions of years ago.
Yes, some people even say as much as 225 million years ago, Steve.
So it's very old. Now, how would you take a piece like this out of the quarry?
Okay, this we call a block, and it's the same as the layers up there. It'll have seams in it, and you have to start the face of the ledge, but this block runs under the other deposits.
I see, so it's all interlocked.
Yeah, so we have to start in reverse order of how it was laid out.
So where would you start?
We'd take a 16-pound sledgehammer and a lifting wedge and go to a block right here, and we'd raise this block in this free seam.
I see. Well, can we see that?
Sure. You better stand back a little bit, Steve. You don't have eye protection.
No, Jerry, we do have a plane to catch. I don't know if we have time to wait around for these guys to lift this mountain with a wedge.
Well, you don't know how fast things can happen here.
Oh, look. I can see that lifting up right there.
Yes, it's starting to split on the free seam there.
Huh. Well, it does go quickly, doesn't it? Now from here, where does it go?
Okay, from here we take it up to the top to a splitting station. Do you want to see?
You bet.
Okay, let's go up.
I guess there's no machine that can do this.
No, this has to be pretty much done by hand here.
What's the trick?
The blocks, these are called splitting stations.
Yeah.
And the blocks are all split down into finer pieces here.
Is it tough to do?
No, you want to take a whack at it?
Take a whack at it?
Sure. Let's try it over here.
Okay, what's the trick?
Okay, these chisels are different. You'll notice from the one in the quarry, it was a lifting wedge.
Yeah, they're thin.
These are thin. They're called splitting chisels.
Yeah. You got a nice edge there.
So you just take that and you find the seam here and take this 8-pound hammer
And whack.
and whack.
All right.
So as that seam opens up, if you see a fine line, then you follow that line.
I see a line right there. So what do? Just move over?
Mm-hmm. Move over and follow it as it travels.
How you pay this? By the piece or by the pound?
It's all by the pound or ton. Now
By
bring
the
another
ton.
chisel over here and leave that one there and drive it in there. Looks like you got it free now.
Look at that.
Okay.
Well, that's
You
easy.
get a nice slab of stone there.
Now, where does it go from here?
Okay, from here we put it on pallets and take it to the yard for further processing by truck. Do you want to take a look at that?
You bet. Let's go.
Okay.
Now you've taken me on a drive of 20 miles or so from the quarry to what looks like flagstone heaven. I've never seen so much flagstone.
Yes, Steve, each one of these rows is a separate load of stone destined for a different part of the country.
They'll stack it up on a flatbed truck?
That's right. We ship to all parts of the Southwest, Canada, and Hawaii.
All over. Now what about this stuff here?
Okay, this stone has just come in from the quarry on these high-back pallets, and we sort it and grade it and palletize it for shipment.
Now what do you look for when you sort it?
Right here, this stone is a little too laminated. It has too many layers in it, so it's not really a good quality, and it'd be grade 3.
Now where's the good stone?
Muck. So these are examples of good solid flagstone right here in these sheets.
That's what this gentleman's doing here?
Yes, he's sorting and grading the stone right here.
I see. Now some of your customers must want nice square pieces instead of irregular pieces. Where do you do that?
Would you like to see that?
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, Steve, this is our saw building, and over here we have a wire saw.
Oh, I see. This allows you to cut these big blocks of stone which can't be split any other way since they're totally integrated.
Yes, these are blocks like we saw at the top of the other quarry.
Right. Now this is not just any saw blade here.
So these are diamond impregnated buttons. We run water on these at all times to keep them cool and to keep the sand dust out of the way.
Flush the cuttings. Let's see this work.
Okay, Bill, would you go ahead?
Now how long will it take you to cut through that block?
It's going to take approximately 2 hours.
Now how do you cut the thin stuff?
Okay, the thin stuff is sawed on these other diamond saws over here. We use an 18-inch blade, and they have diamond segments in them. We water cool those also.
Ooh, look at this stuff here. This is lovely.
Okay, this is a finished product, and this is for the Richard Nixon Presidential Library and birthplace in Yorba Linda, California.
Now, that is gorgeous. Now, I can't come all this way without taking home a sample.
Yeah, I've just got the place to show you for your sample.
Oh, yeah?
Are you flying back tonight, Steve?
Yeah.
In one of those little planes?
Yeah.
Have we got a good deal for you? Normally we charge a penny a pound for this stone out of the do-it-yourself pile. But inasmuch as it's you, we'll let you stuff as much in your satchel as you can, as long as you can fit it under the seat in front of you.
People really come out here and scrounge through this pile?
They sure do, from all over.
Hey. Well, I want to thank you a lot for showing us your operations.
Well, we really appreciate you coming and visiting us.
You bet. Well, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to look for my sample.
Okay, be our guest.
Well, that's where the stone comes from. Now let's see how it goes down. The mark of a superior stone job is the uniformity of the grout lines. And you can see that here they're about 3/8 of an inch, and 3/8 is held all through the whole floor. And that's the artisanry of John Morris. And John, you've been doing this for how long?
I've been working with stone for about 15 years now.
Well, it really shows.
Thank you, Steve.
Now this piece looks very irregular. How would you fit it?
This will actually take 2 stones.
Two?
If I were to try and cut it out of one, it would surely break.
Where would it break?
It would break right along this seam here, and it would look very unnatural.
Okay, so 2 stones it'll be.
I use these 2x4s to hold the stone above the adjacent stones.
Now, do you make a template?
No, I just eyeball it. Then I look for the stone that will offer the least amount of waste.
All right.
And I score off roughly what needs to be removed.
Oh, I see why you hold it up there, so you're not pounding stone on stone.
Exactly.
Right.
Then I just start nibbling at it.
Now, what are you using for tools here? This looks pretty high-tech here. It's just a regular old cold chisel, hardened steel, not particularly sharp.
I usually sharpen it.
And what, just a 16-ounce finishing hammer?
Yes. A light hammer is what I like for this freeform work here. For larger rectangles, I use a 2-pound hammer and a splitting chisel.
I
I listen to the sound of the stone as I'm cutting it to make sure that it's sounding real solid.
How can you tell the difference in sound?
Well, I'm always listening for the sound the stone makes right before it breaks in half.
Now notice you take just a very little bit off at a time, and you're holding the chisel in a very vertical position.
Yeah, I hold the chisel straight up from the stone so that the stone breaks off more inward than creating a bulge, which would cause it to be stone that would be in the way of making a tight joint. I like taking off a little bit at a time because you can always take more off, but you can't put more back on it.
Ah, now I begin to see that line develop.
And now is when I want to be real careful not to take too much off, or I'll have to start all over again.
Or to break the stone. Now, why are you trimming this off, John?
I'm cutting this off to make it easier for the next stone to fill this hole. If I take this little hump out here, it'd be an easier line to chisel.
Well, that looks like about it.
Yeah. Let's see how it fits.
Okay. Pull all these out.
Leave 2 of them in there.
All right. Boy, that is sweet, I'll tell you. That is very nice.
I'm interrupting a lesson on how to lay stone here.
No, not at all. We're just finishing up.
Isn't John a great teacher, Steve?
It's wonderful, yeah. John, I got to thank you for a beautiful job.
Thank you, Steve.
Speaking about beautiful jobs, let's take a look at the plaster that's going on now. We've got some of the best plasterers in Santa Fe helping us out, Steve.
Yeah, I've been checking this out.
Let's take a look. Raymond Gonzalez, 3 plasterers and 2 laborers have been sculpturing our walls now for the last 2 weeks. Look at what we've gotten done.
Look at this.
Isn't that a beautiful surface? Look at the return into the window.
You know, back east we'd have finished carpenters in here casing the windows out in wood.
Oh, here we just come right to the wood window and come out with a nice clean bullnose detail. Here's a dry one here that we can look at.
Look at this. You know, John, this is a good job.
Well, this topping here is not only a hard surface, but it's also a very smooth surface, and it has a little bit of pink underneath it, so that we can leave the walls in this application unfinished.
Well, this is the end of the process. What's the beginning like?
Oh, let's get Raymond. Raymond, help us out, and let's take a look at how this process begins. Let's go, Steve. Here in the library, we left a little patch of exposed adobe so we could see how this plastering process comes together. Over the adobe, we put the metal lap fastened to the adobe with the nails. Raymond, let's just show Steve how the plaster goes on the wall. Okay. There we go.
What you want to do is just squeeze it in so you can get it all in there.
This is what we call the scratch coat. So we really fill all the voids in the wall with plaster. Notice how hard he's pushing that material in. You're getting it, Steve. You're getting it. What do you think, Raymond?
I think we hire him and start paying him $5 an hour.
Not bad. He's working under a tough radius condition here, too.
I need more here. Well, I tell you, this is a workout. What's next, Coach?
We're going to get a scratcher and we're going to scratch it.
That's right.
And scratch all the walls.
Well, the plaster is still wet. We want to run this scratching rake across the walls so that the brown coat, which is the next process, has a good surface to grab to. After the scratch coat sets up, like this patch over here, Raymond's going to put some water on it in order for the bond for the brown coat will be very effective. The brown coat is the same material as we did on the scratch coat, only this time we're going to float the surface for the finish. Let's float it, Raymond. Now we're ready for the finish coat.
Yeah, I see. Once you've got the finish coat all over the walls, you're pretty much out of here.
Not really. We still have the electrical devices to trim out. Let's take a look.
Okay.
Well, the dining room will be the first room that's going to be trimmed out electrically, and Roger Byers, our electrician, is doing that right now. This is the type of system he's putting into this house.
Boy, that is a really nice looking package.
This is an all-electronic dimmer control.
And if there's one room that you want dimmers, it's in the dining room.
That's exactly right. Now, just imagine that we're sitting at the dining room table, and you want to add a little bit more light, just so you can see who you're having dinner with.
Yeah.
All you do is you pick up your infrared control, aim it towards that wall, and raise that knob.
Unbelievable.
Isn't that fun?
You can control your VCR with it too, huh?
That's right. No, not really. Remember the old toggle switch days?
Yeah, I guess you haven't installed them over here yet.
Oh, yes, we have. Toggles, switches are dead. Here we go.
Push buttons.
That's
Amazing.
right. Very
Well,
clean.
The place is really coming together, and I'm happy to say that the cabinets are coming together too. In fact, recently I had lesson number 2 in the cabinet making system from Norm.
Oh.
Well, last time, Steve, I gave you the first class in cabinet making, and that was how to build the carcasses.
Yeah.
Basically plywood and 1-bys. And since that time, I've actually installed the base cabinets and the wall cabinets. Now, to hold them in place, these cleats were installed before the rough plaster was put on, and that gives me a good place for screws, and they're put in such a way that you won't see them after it's all hung up there. Then I'm ready to start building the face frames, which are these pieces here.
Now you'll attach the doors to the face frames.
That's right, the doors will hinge on the stiles, and down on these base cabinets there's actually drawers and doors, which fit around the face frame. And in some cases, like over here, there's an entire bank of drawers, 4 drawers, and the face frame outlines each drawer opening.
Boy, that is some fine joinery, Norm. How do you do it?
That's the next class. Come on. Well, Steve, you know, this is not the first time we've built face frames on the show. And I've got part of one laid out right here.
Oh, what's this, the drawer case next to the dishwasher?
That's right, it's a bank of drawers and then a door over here. Now, when you make face frames, the main job is to connect the pieces together, make all these joints. And in the past, I've done it using half-lap joints like this, with a little glue and a couple nails there, real strong.
Yeah.
You make the joint either on the table saw or the radialon.
Yeah.
But it can be a little bit time-consuming.
Sure. So what are you doing instead?
Well, the more I use these biscuits, the more I realize this is a better way to do it. What I do is actually line up my pieces where I want them, like that, and the biscuit's going to be in that position. So we put a pencil mark across the piece that'll guide me to cut slots into which that'll fit.
So these are quick to assemble and still plenty strong.
Oh, more than strong enough. Now, the tool to make the slots is this tool, and there's a little saw blade in there, and as you push the tool, it'll cut the slot.
Sort of a half moon.
Yeah, it works great. I'll show you how it's done. You just line up the tool, the little red mark on the tool with the pencil mark, and you cut it.
That's it, huh?
That's it. You want to try one?
You bet. So you just line it up.
Yeah. Turn it on.
Okay. Well, I'll give you a hand. Boy, I really like this thing. Works great.
You do, huh?
Yeah. Well, that's the last one, Norm. You ready to glue them up?
Yeah, I think you got them all. Well, you know, if I was back at the shop where I have 50 clamps, I would certainly glue all the face frames up before I go back into the kitchen. But I got another way. Come on, grab these biscuits and we'll go back to the kitchen.
This I gotta see. No clamps.
All right, Steve. Now I'm going to show you how we set them right in place on the cabinet. The first thing I want to do is put a little glue on the edge of this plywood, because that'll help hold it there. And I'm going to take this style first and hold it flush with the inside of this cabinet. That's all I really care about. Flush and even with the top, and just nail it.
Notice still got a gap there on the left.
Yeah, but that's one thing that's nice about this job. The plasterer comes in later and fills it in, so I don't have to scribe anything.
Oh, I see what you're doing. You're using the nails as clamps.
Exactly. Okay. Now, to assemble the joints, first I'm going to put a little glue, squeeze some into the slot, and if you give me one of those biscuits, you slip that in, and then apply a little more glue on the part of the biscuit that's going to go into the other piece.
Now those will actually swell up with the glue.
That's right. These beechwood biscuits swell up, and boy, I'll tell you, they really hold the joint. Now, if you could get up and just push this piece up against that stile. Okay, see the glue squeezes out. Nice fit. Now I'll secure it in place with a nail.
Hey, with this technique, who needs pipe clamps?
That's the whole idea.
Now you got to move fairly quickly before these biscuits swell up.
Yeah, you don't want to let them sit open for too long because they will swell, and then it's difficult to squeeze the pieces together. Now on this one we got quite a few pieces, so now we just go one at a time and slip them. You might just hold these because they may fall until we get them all set. All right, now center style.
Okay, I'll be the human clamp.
The only clamp that I have to feed, right? Okay. These squeeze together. Okay.
Well, that is pretty slick, Norm. What's the next lesson?
Well, I already showed you how to make the doors. The next lesson would be how to hang the doors and how to hang the drawers.
Well, next time we go to Juarez, Mexico to see our marble countertops being made. And then, of course, it's time to finish up this old house and have our final party. Until then, I'm Steve Thomas.
Funding for this old house is provided by
State Farm Insurance. Keeping our promise of protection with auto, home, life and health insurance. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
and by Parks Corporation, makers of safe and simple, environmentally responsible stains and finishes that enrich, protect, and preserve the natural beauty of wood.